what your running cadence is actually telling you when you're going out for a run, and you're actually tracking it and seeing what is going on. So, what is your cadence to start with? Your cadence simply is the amount of steps that you are taking per minute when you go for a run, right? It's as simple as that. It's either steps per minute, cadence, strides per minute, whatever you want to call it. It all means the exact same thing. How many times your foot is hitting the ground, your feet are hitting the ground over a 1 minute period. So there's an optimal range between 170 and 190. So I always put the figure out there, 180, but there's an optimal range between 170 and 190. Now this range, and that's steps per minute. So how many times your feet have hit the ground over a minute period. So with that range, there's variations between that as well. So there is that optimal range, but depending on height, weight, and various other factors can change that optimal range for you. But if you're a beginner and you haven't been running long, if you aim for that optimal range, you're going to be hitting a sweet spot for yourself. And then over time, you will learn and optimize your own running for yourself. Now, other things that will also change and vary that optimal range is the type of run that you're doing. So if you're going out for a 100-meter sprint compared to a long run, the optimal range of cadence is going to be vastly different. So that will even come with threshold runs and easy runs and all sorts of stuff like that. So you just need to take that into account when you're assessing your cadence over time. But for you guys, there won't be a massive difference, and I'll show you in a second some of my tracking and the difference between different paces. Even there's not a huge difference between my cadence. When I start sprinting and going really hard, yes, my cadence bumps up a lot. But in between those easy runs, those threshold runs, steady runs, all that type of stuff, there isn't a great deal of deviation between them all. Okay, so how do we track cadence? There's a heap of different ways that we can do it. We can do it through any sort of fitness tracker. So you can do it through any sort of watch. They will track it. There's also apps on your phone. So if you just chuck your phone in your pocket, strap it to your arm, whatever you want to do with it, that will also track your cadence. And there's also another method that you can do if you don't have any of that, and that is to count your steps. So you don't want to count every single step. You just want to count one side. So let's go left foot steps, and you just count it. Like you can do it over 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30, even a minute. Count how many left foot steps you've taken and double it. And that's what you've got, and make it so that it's the minute, and that'll come out with your cadence. So your steps per minute. All right. So there's so many different benefits when it comes to improving your cadence. So increasing your running efficiency is a big one. So you're running faster with less effort. So it's a lot easier to run. So you're using less energy to actually run faster. It fixes a lot of technique issues. So I'm going to go over a couple when we talk about the two different things that you can be doing between a higher cadence and a low cadence. So it fixes up a lot of technique issues just by focusing on that optimal range of cadence. And also it lowers injury rate. So if you're someone that gets sore knees a lot, your ankles get sore, your hips get sore when you're running, this may be something that actually helps you, because it reduces the amount of contact time that you're actually on the ground. And along with that, it reduces the force that you're actually hitting the ground. So every single step is going to be, yes, you're going to take more steps most of the time for people. You're going to be taking more steps, but you're going to be a lot lighter on the ground. All right, so you're going to be putting a lot less force through the body and less likely, like a lower potential of injury and overuse stuff. So, inflaming your knees, your ankles, and your hips and everything along the line. All right, so I am going to show you a couple of different, two different runs that I have tracked, and I'll just show you an example between pace and the cadence. Let's start with this one here. So this is just through Garmin Connect. So there's an app for it, but this is also, you can sign in and get a whole heap of data on the actual website. It's like a web app as well. So lots of stuff that you can really dive in and try to improve your running with. Now, with this one here, this gray part, like the filled in gray part, that is my pace, and the orange dots are my cadence. So just to give you a bit of an outline of what this run was. So this run was more of a heart rate based run. That's why there's a lot of deviation with my actual pace, because I'm trying to match a specific, stay under certain heart rates. Now for the first 10 minutes, I was just trying to stay under 150 beats per minute. All right, you can see, it's relatively slow there for myself. And then as I went past that 10-minute mark, I allowed myself to bump up to 170. So I picked up the pace, but I still had to try to at least stay under 170 beats per minute for the rest of the for a 20-minute duration. And then at the end here, for the last 10 minutes, I attempted to bring my heart rate underneath the 150 beats per minute again and sustain it under that 150. And that's why there's very slow bits there, because that's where I was walking and jogging. Okay, so you can see there's a lot of variation with my actual pace along the run. But a thing that you don't see is a huge variation in my cadence. Yes, there's a slight change from when I was running, 5-minute 30, 5-minute 20. I was running with 180 steps per minute. You can see in that little white box there, it's got my pace and it's got my steps per minute, which is my cadence. And the bottom time is just the time that I was running. So you can see I'm sitting at 180, pretty much at that 180, just under 180 steps per minute. And I'm running really slow for myself, just trying to keep my heart rate under that aerobic sort of threshold area. As I pick up the pace over here, now I'm hitting a 424 per kilometer, but look at my steps per minute. They're still very close to what I was doing before. They have gone up slightly because I've picked up that pace, but they're still within that optimal range as well. So it's still sitting in a really good range, 184 steps per minute, which is pretty much right on the money. And you can see even when I really drop the pace down, trying to lower my heart rate down after a relatively hard run, you can still see, I'm only running a 545 per kilometer, but I'm right on the money. I'm hitting 180 steps per minute. Okay, this takes a lot of practice to get a feel. You need to learn that timing. And I'll go over some ways to actually try to work on that. But it takes a lot of time to build this. So don't expect to just go from whatever cadence you're running right now straight up to that optimal range and it'll just feel supernatural, because I'm telling you, it won't. It'll feel really off for you, especially if you've been doing the other way for a very long time. Okay, so that's an example of like a heart rate run where like my pace is actually changing throughout, but my cadence is still staying within a very tight range, and it's still within that optimal range as well. Now, this one here was just a threshold pace run. So you can see there's not much change. I slowed down a little bit towards the end, but it was pretty much around the 420 to 430 run for a 20-minute run. Now, have a look at my cadence. It pretty much does not, yes, it's a little bit higher than what it was on my last run because I'm running a little bit quicker. It's more up to the 190 steps per minute. I do tend to have a little bit higher of a cadence, but that's not bad. So you can see I'm still within that optimal range, hitting 190 steps per minute, and it very minimally changes across the whole thing. So you can still see even right at the end when I was slowing down, and that's even with a slower pace, like 20 seconds per kilometer slower even, you can see I'm still only 5 steps per minute slower with my cadence. Okay, so that just gives you an example of, things that you can assess with your own training. So you can just look at this sort of stuff. Every app, every tracker and whatnot has got this sort of thing now. So you can jump in and check out this sort of stuff and really self-assess and see where you can improve. So you may see like big variations between your cadence as well, and you just need to work on holding a steady cadence. All right, so they're examples of my running. Okay, now let's come back. All right, so there's two different things that you can be doing. You can either have, three really. You can have a high cadence, you can have an optimal cadence, or you can have a low cadence. Now, high cadence, I don't see very often. So very, very rarely do I see a high cadence, but there are some things like if you are someone that has got a really high cadence, and I'm talking like you're running really slow. So let's say less than 5 minutes per kilometer, and your cadence is 190 up to 200 steps per minute. That's a fast cadence for that sort of pace. So if you do find, I'll go over some stuff in a second about high cadence and you can improve. So you can have an optimal cadence as well. Just keep doing what you're doing. You're obviously in that good range, and you don't really have the cadence to work on. There still will be other technique things to work on, but your cadence is sitting pretty sweet. So you just need to work on those other things. And then there's the low cadence. Now this is 99% of the time. Beginner runners, intermediate runners are sitting low. And honestly, I don't think I've ever seen someone in a high cadence. The majority of people that I see are in that low cadence area. So let's go back to the high cadence just to get this one out of the way, just in case there are some out there with the high cadence. So pretty much if you have a high cadence, it means you've got a short gait. So that means, a gait is your stride length. So if you have a high cadence, it means you have a really short gait. So you've just got a really short range that your legs are actually propelling you. Now, with that, when I'm talking about opening up your gait, I'm not talking about opening up your gait by striding forward, because that becomes a mistake in the low cadence one, which I'll talk about in a second. But you don't want to stride forward anymore. You more want to push yourself out to the rear. So your foot is striding backwards a lot more. Now, with that, the reason you probably got a short gait is because you have got really tight hips and weak glutes. So they're the two things that you really need to work on, and you'll find, and with practice as well, actually pushing that foot out and over exaggerating it until you do improve it. I did have a higher cadence than what I do now, and I have worked on those things, and it did improve. So, and it actually helped with a few knee issues as well. So I feel better when I run now that I've fixed that up. So yeah, improving that gait if you've got that high cadence by opening up the hips and also strengthening up the glutes and just getting that more range behind you. Right, so now let's get into the low cadence. So this is the most common one, most common especially for beginners, any sort of intermediate runner. Honestly, it's nearly everyone that I see when we track cadence. So what is happening with low cadence? It's a factor, like it's a matter of overstriding. So what you are doing majority of your time is you are overstriding to the front. So you are striking so you're landing with your knees locked out and you're landing on your heels. So there's a lot of force in that's going through your ankles, through your knees, through your hips. So not only improving this is going to help your running efficiency, but it's going to help with your injury potential as well. So you're going to lower that down because you're going to lower that amount, like the amount of force that you're actually putting through your body by improving your cadence and getting rid of that force a little bit. So I'll show you some examples in a second, but what you want to be doing, just to explain it, is instead of reaching out with your leg and like locking that knee out and landing with a locked knee and your heels striking, you want to be landing with a soft knee and your foot a lot closer, if not underneath your hips, and you will be landing on your forefoot. Okay, I'll show you an example, a really good example of that in a second. But what this will do, it'll shorten that gait. So like I was talking about before, the others need to open that gait, but this will shorten the gait and it will allow you to have a quicker turnover with your feet. And you'll be striking the ground with less force. You'll just be hitting it more times, but it'll be like you're skipping across ice. A lot less force going through the body and a lot more efficiency with your running because you're using a lot less energy. You're more falling forwards and your legs are just keeping up with you doing it. Now let's jump in and have a look at an example of this so that you get a really good understanding. Okay, so this first one here is just a short, so I'm just taking some YouTube stuff. So this guy here, you can see sitting on 180 steps per minute. And like you can see, it's just a nice, quick tempo for him, quick cadence, and he's running really smoothly. There's not much, flogging into the ground, and there's not much force coming back up his body. Now you can see straight away where his foot, so he's just about to land, his foot is going to land underneath like a flex knee, so a soft knee, very close to underneath his hips. If not, it may even land underneath his hips here. What he's not doing is landing with his foot right out in front with a locked knee and his heel striking. Now let's just play this and you'll see how it's just nice and smooth. See where he's landing with his feet, landing on that forefoot and a nice stride out the back. Nice quick turnover. It's just like he's skipping along the ground. Right, now let's jump into this one. And this one is a very, very good one to look at. So this guy has slowed down some elite runners and then he shows an example of a beginner runner. And it's honestly so many people that I've seen run in that fashion. So this is the elite runner. You can see and what this guy talks about is with the elite distance runners, they tend to land with their foot a little bit further out than underneath hips, whereas sprinters land underneath hips. But it's all exactly the same stuff, and it's pretty much just underneath like a flexed knee. Very like when all the force comes down onto it, it is underneath the hip, like you can see just there. So let's just go through it. Right, you'll see where his forefoot strikes is very close to flat, but he lands on that forefoot. You see, he strikes there, and it's just in front of his hips there. But when he lands, let's go back. But when he lands, it's at least underneath that flex knee. You can see as soon as he lands, He's got that flex knee rather than straight out in front with a heel strike. And then when his full body is on like he's taken full like weight of himself, it is underneath the hips and he quickly turns over. Now we'll have a look at a beginner runner. So as you can see, locked out leg, heel strike, all that force shooting back up. It's actually slowing him down and creating a lot more force back up through his body, and that will cause that slower cadence as well. Okay, so hopefully with that, it just shows you an actual visual as well of those different like foot strikes and technique that will actually improve or like will dictate whether you're going to have that low cadence, because that's typically what's happening if you've got a low cadence, and improving your cadence up to that optimal level. All right, so ways to improve. So there's a few different ways that we can try to improve this. So there's metronomes. So there's many different ways that you can get metronomes. You can actually get them through your smartwatches. You can get them through your phone. And all that a metronome is it will make a sound at a certain beat. So you set it at like say 100, like if you're aiming for 180 beats per minute, which isn't always the case that you should do. I'm going to go over in a second. But yeah, if you're aiming for that 180 beats per minute, you set it at that. And every time it makes that sound, your feet are striking. So really handy thing just to get in that rhythm. And you need to learn that rhythm over hundreds of, kilometers. I won't go that far, but it is a long time to learn that rhythm. But over a short period, you'll start to feel it. And then you just need to keep grinding away and keep getting better and better at that cadence. And eventually it will just become like second nature, and that'll be your rhythm that you actually run, because running has so much rhythm to it. And as soon as you start to change it, it's going to feel super awkward. So you got the smartphones, you got the watches, everything that you can use for metronomes. Now, other things that you can use on your phone as well is something called a Run 180 app. So this app actually plays songs that have got 180 beats per minute beat to them. So you can just run to the beat. That's actually interesting because you've got music playing. So that's another option. Something that you can do as well if you don't have any of the Gucci stuff like fitness trackers or like apps or anything like that, you can simply just count your steps like I was talking about before. Just count one side and double it. So say we're going for that optimal range. Within a minute, you want to be hitting 85 to 95 steps per minute on that one side, because it's obviously doubled. So you can just count, all right? If you like doing that and figure out what it is for 30 seconds, whatever it is. So you can just self-assess yourself just by checking out your stopwatch, having a look, and then counting those steps. Okay, sweet, I'm at a good spot, or I need to pick this up. Okay, now with all of this, like I was saying before, it takes practice, all right? A lot of freaking practice. Don't expect to get this sort of thing happening like straight away, because it will take a lot of practice, and you need to do it progressively. You can't just go from, say if your running is 150 beats per minute now, 150 steps per minute now, don't just go for 180 steps per minute, because it'll be way too big of a leap for you. Just go up 5 to 10% of whatever you're doing. So go up to, instead of 150, go to 160 beats per minute, and get used to that, get comfortable with that, and then step it up. Okay. It's all about progressive overload. And even with this cadence training, that is something that you should be aiming for. All right. Because it's too big of a jump, you'll just feel awkward. You won't be able to keep up with it. You'll give up and it'll just be no good. Whereas if you make those baby steps, it'll be, before you know it, you'll be hitting that 180 steps per minute and you'll be sitting in a good spot. Okay, so practice it over like if you're going to be going out for a run and practicing it with the Run 180, a metronome, anything like that, do it on a flat, straight track. You don't want anything like hills, play up with your cadence, all this sort of stuff. You want to be running and have nothing that's going to take you out of that rhythm. Whereas it's a hill, or if it's an intersection, or if it's corners, anything like that will change your cadence. So you want to just be able to, like I said, you're learning that rhythm. So you want to learn that rhythm over a flat, straight as possible track. All right. Other things that you can do is like stationary pogo jumps. So getting used to the timing. So you can get that metronome or whatever you're using, set the metronome for whatever cadence that you're aiming for, and it's just pogo jump. So you're using your calves to jump. So you pretty much, your knees are just soft knees, your hips are locked out, and you're using your ankles to jump, and just try to stay with that beat. Once you get good at just staying with that beat by jumping, then you can do it running on the spot. And then you can do it just running at a short distance. So you just get used to that rhythm. It's all about just getting used to that rhythm, and being nice and light on your feet while you do it. Okay, like I said, just only increase by 5 to 10%. And don't make massive jumps. All right. Another thing that you can do as well to just get used to, to improve your calf and your Achilles ability to rebound and just have that nice turnover and quick turnover, because it is a quick turnover when you're trying to improve your cadence up to an optimal level. So things that you can do to try to improve that is skipping. So jump rope. It's a matter of just set a timer, maybe 40 seconds on, 20 seconds off. Do that for 5 rounds. Do that every second day, every third day. And that'll build up that calf and the Achilles ability to create force just off elasticity, and you'll feel a lot lighter on your feet. And then when you go to do those quicker cadences, you'll find that you can skip along the ground a lot easier. All right, guys. So that is all about what your running cadence is telling you. So hopefully that gives you some tips and tricks on how to improve it, and what it's all about. Good luck with it.